Folks, my name is Jim Worthen. The show is Worthen One-on-One. We're here on channel 17, Cox Cable. We're also going out on TVSB's website, and we're on YouTube. I tell you that because you have friends, some of our viewers even, regular viewers, are not in the Cox channel 17 viewing area. And so you can tell people to look us up if they're in Timbuktu. I think that's in Africa.
Yes, it is.
Well, that
was nice of that. That was a good catch.
That was a Greg Gutfeld thing. I knew it was in Africa. Every once in a while slip into Gutfeld. I'm trapped. I watch him 10 hours a week at least, and it's worth it.
Is that a Worthen joke? Worth it?
Yeah, worth it. Yeah, that's right. Oh, you know my nickname in high school.
Now you know how this show is going to go today.
Yeah, my nickname in high school, people said, "What was your nickname?" And I said, "Worthless." And that was the nicest. We are going to talk today with our guest and expert on transportation, Scott Wenz, the longtime chairman. He's been, of Cars Are Basic, and Cars Are Basic will not go back in history and predicting. We'll talk about today, and we can say we told you so, because the traffic pattern in Santa Barbara, the whole South Coast now, slopping over into the San Ynez Valley, is being disrupted by, I call them the kids who graduated from Cal Poly in the last 10 years. Some of them graduated from planning training in college 40 years ago, but they haven't outgrown that. We know and you don't. You know, those are scary people. We know and you don't. And I told Scott we're going to talk about a new type of socialism. There's the socialism of capitalism versus government ownership. And we're seeing that battle now in our society. But Scott's going to tell us about the socialism of you believe in freedom, we know better. How are you doing, Scott?
Well, I was doing fine until I made a turn on Gutierrez Street and tried to get down to the station and found out it was blocked off and you couldn't get over it. And it's the same thing they did on Sola Street, where they put in diverters all up and down Sola, and they didn't give the neighbors proper notification. So now you have traffic that's incapable of traveling the natural flow of a location, and it's been intentional by the city of Santa Barbara.
Well, both those cases trouble me in that these were our older part of our community, not built in the last condos of the last 10, 20 years, but built some 100 years ago. There's not enough parking for our transportation needs.
That's right.
So what happens?
Well, first off, their plan is to drive you out of the use of the automobile. And they've had a good 40 years starting back with the narrowing of State Street, and it hasn't worked. So what do you do if you're insane? You repeat the same thing and hope that the outcome will be different. And if the outcome doesn't happen, what do? You repeat it again. And this current council of the city of Santa Barbara, the council of Goleta, and we can get into that if you want, has done the same thing. Repeated failure. But we know better, and we're going to make society better for you.
Well, I've used the analogy that the individual car is only replaced by the individual horse because of need in the big cities, but wherever someone can have a horse, they have it. not just the San Ynez Valley, the foothills,
Right.
anywhere they have an acre and a half, we want that individual transportation. I went to a forum yesterday evening, and it seemed like everybody who were together came in separate cars.
Of course. And I find it interesting because one of the greatest anti-car advocates, who's now our assemblyman, Greg Hart, made this.
Wash your mouth out.
Yeah, well, I have to. And made the statement as a SBCAG employee. Now, here's an employee of an organization that said we're going to plan rational automobile transportation, and said a good 10 years ago that we now have more cars on the streets than we had before, even though we've done all this other stuff, and there are more individual passenger cars, which means there's only one person in each car. So there's fewer people riding, more people driving, and they're narrowing the streets. Now, does that talk about insanity?
We, and this isn't a criticism of you, but I'm going to critique a little bit. We get into InSpeak because we've used these
Right.
acronyms
I
and
get it.
everything.
Yeah,
What is
yeah.
SBCAG?
Santa Barbara County Association of Governments, which was demanded that be formed all over the nation by the federal government, particularly the federal transportation people, because they were getting constant petitions from cities, districts, and so forth for federal money. They said, we're not going to put up with this any longer. Each county will now have to have its own committee. It will vet the programs, and then they will forward the programs to us for funding on a
Transportation program?
On a rank basis, yes.
And so SBCAG has a representative, usually the mayor from every city?
The mayor or the designated representative from every city, the supervisors,
5 supervisors.
and that is the total number of people on SBK.
13?
Yeah.
Yeah. Boy, I know how many government bodies I have to fight. There's nothing wrong with government except what Ronald Reagan said. Worry when they say, I'm from the government and I'm here to help you.
There you go. There you go.
Not true. So SBCAG are they dictating transportation policy
Yes.
just in the county or in all jurisdictions?
Okay, there's a certain amount of state mandates and federal mandates within an area. And they have to kind of fold into that because those are the overreaching powers of authority in government.
That's a mess in California then.
There you go. And the problem being is that they then have to rank everything they want. And if this city wants this and this city wants that, for instance, the city of Goleta, without doing due process, has voted to narrow down Old Town Hollister to 2 lanes. And you just kind of go, okay, where's the EIR? Where's the promised bicycle count? Where's a bunch of other things? But they will go to SBCAG, and because each SBCAG representative, which is an elected official from their district, is so afraid that somebody will vote against what they want, they'll go, oh, well, Goleta wants this, and Goleta's done the necessary stuff, and we'll just go ahead and give it to them without finding out, well, what happened?
That's reminiscent of old politics. We used to, in government, call it log rolling. I'll roll your log, you roll mine.
Yeah.
And so it was a trade-off on getting what each jurisdiction wanted. And we'll come back to it, you said something terrifying because I live out on Patterson Avenue and I love to go to a laundromat on Hollister at kind of the beginning, and then if I want to go over to Taco Bell or McDonald's, I have to drive down Hollister, and it's pretty comfortable if you watch for parked cars and if you watch for somebody going 45 when you're going 35.
Yep.
And if you watch for pedestrians, 2 lanes, you can stop, even though another car goes right by the pedestrian, but you can follow the rules of the road. And you're telling me they're going to do away with that and make it 1 lane for everybody should go 45?
Well, the actual speed limit on Old Town Hollister is 25.
Yeah.
And so what they want to do is they want to take out the center lane. They want to narrow the street.
Turning lane.
That's right. They want to narrow the street down to 2 lanes. And they want to have diagonal back-end parking.
Well, wait a second. There's businesses all along there,
right,
that, if you're going towards Santa Barbara, you want to turn into Wendy's or My Laundromat, Sud City, or you want to turn in into the car dealers there.
Right.
How are you going to turn? Are you going to stop in that 1 lane and back everybody up behind? It doesn't make sense.
Well, there you go, and there's government in Goleta. And this is why we have asked the city of Goleta, where is your EIR on this project?
What's an EIR?
Environmental Impact Report. See, part of this plan is to put a bike path on Old Town Hollister because they have a demand. But the city of Goleta never did the bike count to show the demand. Cars Are Basic did a demand bike count from 7 to 9 in the morning and came up with 14 bicyclists in 2 hours.
How recent?
That was about a year ago.
Okay. Well,
and so, but didn't mean to step on your toes, but the city of Goleta has talked about their bike plan and their bike project, both in writing and in verbal conversation at the city council meetings. That triggers CEQA, the California Environmental Quality Act, demand that a large program like this has to have an environmental impact report. They haven't done it, and they deny that they even have the need for doing it, even though they planned it for all of Goleta.
I tell people to think of bicycle riding 15 years ago. And I'd say, now, who did you see on bicycles? Well, immigrant workers, it's
right,
legal and illegal. Alcoholics that had their cars taken away. Kids at UCSB.
Right.
Well, all those people now have a better means of transportation. The kids bring in cars, the immigrants buying cars, the alcoholics with Uber or cabs. So my notice is that bicyclists have just really gone down.
Well, you've got one classification of individual that you didn't do that. That's the president of Cars Are Basic, who was riding his bike 50 to 70 miles a week every week.
Recreational bikers, yeah. And they're still there. I travel Cathedral Oaks and Foothill, and boy, those people who are really, really bicyclists. In fact, at the corner of Cathedral Oaks there at Sanson Clinic, before you go
right
under 154, I come down that hill and I stop and I turn the windows down, we're at a red light, and I say to the 2 bicyclists, you guys were going 40 miles an hour just like me down that hill. But those are real bicyclists.
Well, and the thing that's interesting that makes them stand out is the fact that the number of bicyclists has dropped off dramatically. There were 0 bike paths in the city of Santa Barbara in 1983. They had over 1,800 bicyclists on the streets during rush hour. Okay? Now, they put the bike paths on the streets, and they're now under the 1974 baseline, which is around, I believe it was 1,600, and they're now down under 1,000 because we've been out counting bicyclists. We've verified that. So, and this goes back to your comment about we're from the government and we're here to help you.
Yeah. Let's talk about the traffic pattern in Santa Barbara. I go back to, of course, I'm so old, I go back to 4 lanes on State Street.
Be careful, Buckwheat. I was born and raised here. So.
And parking for the businesses. They took away that.
Yep.
And then there's a traffic problem when you take away the extra lanes, because people are looking for, now where's Macy's? Where's that restaurant I want to go to?
Where's Pelch & Sons?
Yeah, where's the restaurant I want to go to?
Yeah.
And so you're causing people to drive around the block.
That's
You're
right.
causing them to, now with technology we're getting where it'll tell you, oh, that restaurant's right here, you're going by it.
Right.
And so you can go to the parking lots. But I hear they have a master plan or a great idea about our parking lots downtown.
Oh, well, it's not just downtown. They have plans for La Cumbre Plaza that has plenty of parking. As a matter of fact, the parking has been getting heavier at La Cumbre Plaza because they do have the parking. But they have plans to rent the downtown parking lots. You have to buy a pass. It's going to cost you on a monthly basis.
No longer 90 minutes free?
No, 75 minutes now. And they've also made the parking lots after hours. If there's nobody on the lot, instead of being free to get out, you have to use your credit card. So it makes no difference whether or not you went out partying and had a few and walked it off and then came back to your car at 12 o'clock at night. You're going to pay from that 6 o'clock to 12 o'clock at night, and you have to use a credit card, otherwise you can't get out of the parking lot. And that's just one instance of what the city is doing to hamper and hammer shoppers and buyers of downtown.
Well, and they love to have extra revenue to waste.
Yeah.
So downtown, the parking lots, I hear that they have some plans to even do away with some of them.
Sure, why not?
What are they going to do?
Well, they can convert some of it into low-income housing, which they've actually are in the process of doing on the corner of Castillo and Carrillo.
Castillo and Carrillo.
Right next to the freeway where they have the short-term parking.
Yeah.
They're gonna start breaking ground on subsidized housing.
So they're doing everything to make it more difficult for the people who are using cars. And yet, history shows that freedom trumps dictation. And so dictators fail every time.
Yeah, but in the process of failing, they invariably really hammer the society that they're in. And that's all you have to do is look around Santa Barbara. In the Currents, which is the new online newspaper / blog.
Great.
Okay, Bonnie Donovan had a thing talking about.
That's Current. Yeah.
And Bonnie Donovan had an article today talking about how the streets were planned. Well, I was born and raised here, and I know, it goes back to Haley and so forth. And the streets were planned out in a logical grid and under the impetus of emergencies and or natural disasters. They widened the roads, they made them more efficient. So what is the city of Santa Barbara doing? They're destroying that grid, 100-year-old working grid, and these idiots are literally putting disaster in the middle of the streets.
Well, as we look at the traffic pattern, what it should be, the streets going toward the ocean, the streets diagonally crossing those streets.
Right.
What was he called? Haley, the man who laid out those streets.
Yeah.
Surveyor.
Yeah.
He laid them out perfectly, except he got to one place and it didn't match, and that's why De La Guerra Street jogged.
That is exactly
His adjustment was at the corner of De La Guerra. It isn't as obvious today, but De La Guerra used to come through where the shopping center is, and it didn't match up with the corner that we know of Haley and State. But he took care of that.
Wasn't the back door there?
Huh?
Back door? The bar.
Oh, yeah. Mel's.
Mel's, there
Yeah.
you go.
The office was down the street.
Yeah.
Not being a person who drank at offices, at small bars, I went to the El Paseo or went over to Montecito to a big bar because they had happy hour.
You just mentioned the El Paseo. The El Paseo for years was a watering hole for a lot of people.
Oh, yeah.
If you weren't going down to Joe's, you drop by the El Paseo or you go up to the Chase and so forth. And now that the State Street's been cut off, now that De La Guerra is basically a dead end,
Yeah.
okay, you go by the El Paseo and you look in and you go, the business people aren't there having dinner and so forth or having lunch to bring their customers in, because there aren't any customers there, because the street cutoff has destroyed retail and most of the professional buildings in downtown.
Yeah, I was a professional downtown in both politics and real estate, and we'd go to lunch at the El Paseo, have a couple of drinks, go back at 5 o'clock and have a couple of drinks, come back at 8 for a different Chamber of Commerce,
Right,
Young Republicans, have a couple of drinks. But we knew where we were and we knew the traffic pattern, but it's dangerous right now because the streets aren't the same as they were designed to be.
Well, I've also found it interesting, the protagonist to Cars Are Basic is the Bicycle Coalition. They're typical, they've been up there for years and so forth. And the Bicycle Coalition has failed in every single one of their major points. There isn't one major point in the last 40 years that they've been successful at. So the people got so angry at the Bicycle Coalition changed its name to get away from that. The Bicycle Coalition, we don't like those people. So they call themselves SB Bike. Okay? And then, guess what? They've changed their name to MOVE, M-O-V-E. And that's all over the state of California. You go down to Ojai, you can see the MOVE building down there. The bicycle people have failed. It's not a question, it's a fact. And whenever you see on Anacapa and some other locations, the traffic gets heavy, and I'm positive tomorrow when this thing is aired, come next week, there'll be more bicyclists on Anacapa and Santa Barbara Street and Chapala in response to this comment. And you see them coming down, and that 20,000 car trips are now on the side streets. And so they're biking in the middle of heavy traffic. Yet on State Street, where they have completely blocked off, they have a bike path down the middle of it, they're not using it.
Yeah, no, the kids are using it for skateboarding and speeding and bicycle, what do they call them when they get up on their back wheels and
Oh yeah,
one of the problems that I've faced as a realtor and someone who has had property on State Street, but also clients that developed, you have to go through so many governmental hoops to, and yet, does the government go through those hoops?
They play lip service to those hoops. But let me give you a classic example. The latest round of bulb outs that went in on Carrillo and on the west side over by Bath Street and so forth, that was all under the guise of we have clusters of accidents, pedestrian accidents, and we're going to solve these accidents by putting these in. Now here's the problem. Cars Are Basic under the California Public Records Act demanded the statistical evidence that proves that pedestrians are safer. They came back and in each instance said, we cannot prove that pedestrians are safer with bulb outs. Okay, wait a minute. So why are you now building more bulb outs? Okay? And if you then take a look at the cluster of accidents, most of those clusters of accidents happened 5 or 6 years previous, and those accident rates had dropped off. So there was something other going on in those locations, having very little to do with the roads and the corners.
Yeah, that's something that's troubled me in watching CAB's requests and being ignored by different government entities. They don't produce the statistics. I mean, you couldn't, at least I couldn't find out as a citizen, how many people were hit as pedestrians crossing State Street, for instance, and how bad was their injuries. How about bicyclists? How many bicyclists who were riding legally were hit?
Right.
And is that true? That's my
Well,
observation.
and how many of them were under the influence? Okay?
Pedestrian under, yeah.
There you go. There you go.
Been there, done that.
And so you have an issue here. The city of Santa Barbara just said, we are going to implement. Now, this is a council that cannot prove their accident rates. This is a council cannot prove that the last 4 years of shutting down State Street has been good for the city. Okay, but they've turned around and said, we're going to adopt a new program. This goes back to your socialist design and so forth. It's called Traffic Calming and Vision Zero. Vision Zero says we slow the traffic down to no more than 10 to 15 miles an hour at the maximum, so that if people get hit, at the most they'll have a few bruises.
My recollection is that traffic calming was a big issue about 20 years ago.
That's right.
With putting in bumps in
Right.
San Mercan.
And it didn't work.
But as time went on, citizens groups rose up against the intrusion into their neighborhoods and their streets, and a whole new city council was elected.
That's right.
And they said no more bull bouts.
That's right.
Yeah, they banned them. They've come back, but I don't know that the city council, even though it has changed, has the city council authorized those, or is it coming through transportation and public works?
The city council has to authorize it. Mm-hmm. That stuff can't be built without the city council voting for it. That's number one. Number two, the problem was the council that said no more of this idiocy was one vote shy of making it an ordinance. Therefore, it was a council majority order of public works and street planning that not to do it. And the next councils that came back that had a one vote majority, like Kathy Murillo, Helene Schneider, you know.
Okay, an explanation of this, and correct me if I'm wrong, to get an ordinance, 7-member city council, you have to have 5 votes.
Right.
You can pass other things on 4-3.
That's right.
And so they were unable to put it into law. They just kept passing it on to the bureaucrats to enforce.
No, they ordered the bureaucrats. That council said, the council majority says, this is what you're going to do, and if you don't do it, we're going to fire you.
Yeah. So they wiped out what the previous councils had done, right. Councils that were elected by a revolution in the neighborhoods, mm-hmm. to back to the elite, the one-party rule in Santa Barbara. This
is the problem. The average individual does not pay attention to council agendas. If you walked out on the street and said, did you look at the council agenda for Tuesday?
Oh, it's on Tuesday?
Yeah, exactly. Okay? They don't know what's happening, and then when it's passed and it's then published in whatever, it's KYT or Newshawk or Current or whatever, okay, they go, wait a minute, we don't want this. This is the same problem on Sola Street.
Wait, about city council meetings, then we'll go to Sola Street. Well, I'm going to go there next week at 8 o'clock for the meeting because I work during the day.
That's right.
What's wrong with that?
Well, first off, a city of the size of Santa Barbara, and more importantly, not necessarily the size of Santa Barbara, but the city that has the number of committees and programs going on and social planning. They have, the largest city in the county of Santa Barbara is Santa Maria. They meet twice a month, okay? And you can walk in there, the sessions go boom, 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 and if there's any kind of discussion going on, no big deal. They'll take the time.
And it's a bipartisan council.
That's right.
The mayor is a Republican, the vice mayor is a Democrat. There's a lot of independents.
Right. And so you in Santa Barbara, you have the same problem in Goleta. You know, I mean,
boy, they are all of one philosophy.
One philosophy, and they don't care. They've had it in the last year. They've had one major Brown Act violation where the council met at a different location. The council was asked specifically at that location where it was a Brown Act violation. They should have had a recorder there.
Explain the Brown Act.
Brown Act states that you may not have a majority of any elected body meet without a public notification that that majority is going to meet.
And meeting is classified as getting together. So
That's right.
If out there, 5 members, if 3 of them get over in the corner at a forum like last night, they've broken the Brown Act, and who knows what they're talking about.
That's right.
And that's why the Brown Act.
That's right.
And the Brown Act, I was there, was passed by a rather progressive, but moderately progressive leader of the Assembly, Willie Brown. And it's named after him.
Yeah.
And a longtime leader in Northern California of the Democratic Party. And the if she was his mistress, what is he?
No.
Of a gal named Kamala Harris. Yeah, Willie Brown was sleeping with her through several years.
Now Vice President of the United States, yes.
She slept her way to the top.
You said it, I did not.
That's fact. You know, we can go down the list.
It's, you know, this social planning stuff came out of a bunch of people who were well-meaning because they saw the blowout in the channel, and it's called Get Oil Out. Okay, they didn't realize that there are accidents, and that's exactly what the blowout was. It wasn't a bad situation because somebody intentionally caused it. It was just an accident. And these people came out and they said, internal combustion engines, oil, carbon, all the rest of this stuff, we do not want it, and we want you out of here. And they do not care what the people want.
I think there's more oil leaking in the channel each year than that blowout.
Oh yeah.
Because that's why it's called Coal Oil Point. That's why kids forever owning property you had to give them some gasoline or kerosene to clean their feet, or they'd ruin your carpet, because forever, and it's come back.
There's
right. Tar on the beaches and everything.
Well,
it's natural.
Look what Newsom and Scott Wiener and the rest of them in Sacramento are doing, to shutting down the California oil production. The channel is now, as you said, producing more oil. Well, why? Because the gas builds up in those vaults under the ground, and it pushes the oil out. And I will guarantee you, when the last derrick is shut down in state water, you'll have more oil on the beaches than you have today.
2 points of history. Unfortunately for you, I've lived through so much of this, so I can add to your expertise. Before it closed, the Biltmore,
yes,
and the Coral Casino had plaques where you went down to Ledbetter Beach saying the oil on the shore is from natural seeps, not from the oil derricks.
Yep.
And the other thing that happened back in those days, we had a blowout. The President of the United States was Richard Nixon.
Right.
He appointed a commission. Here we go with a commission. And they studied it for a couple of years, and they came up with an answer. Drill it out. Relieve the natural pressure of this oil coming up out of the ocean. Pump it out. You know, there's only so much oil down there. If you pump like crazy for 10 or 15 years, it won't be any in the undersea.
Well, where do you think most of the pressure is right now? In what area? Goleta, Santa Barbara, Carpinteria, where?
Well, I think it's off the Isla Vista Coal Oil Point.
That's one. The other area is the city of Carpinteria and Toro Canyon. Okay?
Up on land.
Exactly. So what happened this last year that got the county of Santa Barbara in hock with the state of California and their Environmental Protection Agency? Because the natural seep in Toro Canyon that has always been there, going back to the Native Americans, Chumash, and all the rest of that stuff, started bubbling out again.
Yeah, they had a pump and a process for it, and it failed, and the county didn't do anything about it. And I think they lost a big lawsuit from.
Yes, they did.
They lost a lawsuit from the EPA, I think.
Yep.
And because they didn't take care of what
they're supposed to have a separator at the top of the.
Yeah.
So what happens if that gets even bigger pressure and it starts leaking out in other areas?
Yeah. Well, people are, anti-oil
Sure.
now, mainly because the false premise of get oil out. When I came to Santa Barbara, okay, it was in the 60s, there were oil wells off of Cliff Drive on some vacant properties
right.
there, up and down
they
pump.
They had the tanks up there. I remember that as a kid.
Yeah. And
but here's how we can solve that. We can do away with oil tomorrow. We just need to go back and hunt more whales.
Well, I tell people, and my son has advocated this, and more people are advocating it. We will do away with the use of petroleum to the extent it's used when we're willing to accept nuclear power.
To a degree, yes. But you're still going to have the issue of lubricants. And
Of what?
lubricants and hydrocarbons.
Oh, yeah.
And
I mean for transportation.
Oh, yeah.
My son advocated that we should be using nuclear power, and like he said, park a retired destroyer off our coast, and their nuclear plant will produce enough power for all of Santa Barbara. And because there's still a nuclear power there. And I said, well, what about, he said, I don't know the exact number, but there's 2,000 to 4,000 nuclear reactors around this country for non-military use, although many of them are on military bases because that's where they get their power.
Okay, now Diablo Canyon has been determined necessary for the energy needs of San Luis Obispo County and the surrounding area. Where do you think 30% of that energy goes?
Nevada.
Not too far off. It goes to power the Tehachapi lift stations so that you can get the water that comes down from Northern California to feed Southern California, and in some instances the Santa Barbara and Ventura County area. So you do away with that, all of a sudden you don't have enough energy to pump water into Southern California.
Would it still be needed if they weren't sending so much of the water from the San Joaquin Basin out to the sea to preserve 139 little fish? And if they diverted it into wouldn't it just drive the water over the top?
No, you've got too big of a lift there, but I know what you're saying. It's the same situation as I was watching the Cachuma level with these rains. Cachuma would have spilled a month ago if it hadn't been for the fact that they have to release for the fish downstream. Yet you go downstream, even on a big year where there's a lot of water, where are the fish?
Yeah. Well, there's two things here, because we have several Republicans on the water boards down through San Ynez. There's 5 districts, and I think we control all 5, but have an absolute majority on 4 of them. And they're required to release water to refill, or what's it called? Refill the basins.
The aquifer, yeah.
Yeah, all the way down to.
Which that's a reasonable.
Yeah.
Okay, but when you're releasing water for fish that do not happen, I mean, when the minute they put Kachuma in, it stopped all of that.
Stop the spawning of salmon.
That's
anyway.
right.
Yeah, my son fishes down, and they have to throw them back down in Lompoc, and he says there's a lot of fish coming up, and he hasn't hooked a salmon, but some bass and carp, and
Yeah.
So the nature still fights back.
Yep. And that's the sad thing about it. Government tries to override what is necessary to meet both human and natural issues.
Yep.
And that goes to emergency response, it goes to street planning, there's a whole bunch of things. And this show isn't long enough to do what we would like to do.
I'm kind of an iconoclast and say mean, stupid things, but people glorify Mother Nature, and my answer is Mother Nature's a bitch. Don't cross her. If you don't believe me, go back to the Midwest and Florida and really see Mother Nature, or wait till we have our next earthquake here. Yeah.
Do not want to see an 8-point earthquake. That 7-point that happened down in San Fernando was a nasty piece of work, and they had reinforced buildings, they had reinforced freeways and so forth. They couldn't stand up to it.
Brand new freeway, the first death in that, and there was, I think, 130 in that Northridge earthquake. You know what the first death was? Highway patrolman, middle of the night.
Collapsed.
And it.
Oh, that's right. He drove right off the end of it.
Yeah, of the, I guess, Highway 15 being built.
It's transportation.
In a motorcycle, by the way.
Yeah. Transportation affects everybody and everything. And if you're irresponsible in your planning, it will come back and bite you in the rear end. And this is the thing that bothers me so much. Do you think that Harriet Miller, before she passed away, put up a trust fund so anything that she helped get passed would be fixed? Do you think Marty Bloom and her husband, the good doctor, they have very good income?
Nice people too.
Yeah, well, particularly Joe.
Yeah, the doctor.
He's a great guy. I like him.
Yeah.
Okay. Are they going to put up money to retrofit the streets where they haven't been able to make bike paths work? How about Helene Schneider? She threatened to sue her own city. She threatened to sue SB CAG because she didn't get her own way. And it's now been proven that she was wrong. Then you had Kathy Murillo. And you have a council now that is fully backing all of this stupidity. When the Independent, a street item that I do not care for, I don't read most of it, comes out and complains about the street planning on the west side, then you know that the people who are planning the streets of Santa Barbara are gone. They're out of their minds. And this is what happened on Sola Street.
Where are they getting, because those of us who drive the city notice that the roads are getting repaired and repaved.
That's right.
How are they doing that?
They're getting funds from the state and federal government. But, here's the question. The state of California has just announced that it has a $68 billion deficit, with billion, right?
Right.
Where's the money going to come from? They don't have enough money coming into the coffers to meet the deficit. So how is this money coming down to do things like diverters and streets?
They're either not going to, or they're going to raise taxes. But the federal government prints it.
That's right.
And they have this new bill that was passed, unfortunately, with 18 Senate Republicans, none in Congress, but 18 Senate Republicans supporting it. That's the infrastructure bill, I think $1.5 billion. The time it takes that money to flow through the appropriation process, throw through the, that money isn't going to pave streets in Santa Barbara, even if it's allocated for that for 5 years.
Easily, yeah. I don't know where you want to go with the end of the program, Jim, but it is becoming quite apparent. City of Carpinteria just gave $68,000 to MOVE, which is the old Bicycle Coalition. For what? They have rental property, they're a self-funded organization, and they get money from their state organization, so they gave $68,000 to MOVE. The city of Goleta is giving thousands of dollars. The city of Buellton gave thousands of dollars. So now they're close to over $100,000.
This was a bicycle coalition. How did they get property? It's supposed to be a
It was donated to them. Okay? Cars Are Basic has never taken one dime, not even one penny of taxpayer money in 25 years. We've been offered it. Matter of fact, we were just offered $100,000 from a government agency who says, we like what you're doing, we will help you do this. And we said, I thank you very much, but we do not take government money. If you want to get private people to donate it to us, fine, we'll take it. But we will not use taxpayer money on anything. Yet these people, the Community Environmental Council, the Environmental Defense Center, the Bicycle Coalition, you name it.
Paid staff and...
They take money hand over fist. They're so greedy, they can't wait for the next time that government turns around and says, we've got tax money, we'll give it to you. Forget the fact that the majority of the people in the communities that are paying these taxes don't want it to go to them.
It's always strikes me as funny, and some of it's very small and, you know, artsy-fartsy, as we used to say, groups, but each council and the Board of Supervisors gives grants to nonprofits.
That's right.
They have a list of
each
year that they're going to, well, that's my money.
That's right.
I should have the choice whether I give to the Environmental Council or, or the Policemen's Association. And I see the list, and that's not a lot of money. They're just giving $10,000 here, $20,000 there, $5,000 here, but there's 5 or 6 government entities in this county.
And it all adds up.
Yeah, it does.
And it's. I mean, we're not talking about insignificant amounts of money. When you can hire a director who gets at the top end of 5 figures salary.
Okay, I want to move quickly to an impending disaster. What is the plan for Upper State Street now?
Okay, part of it has to do with RHNA, Regional Housing Allotment, that was passed by Governor Jerry Brown, who said that it's not constitutional under the state of California. So why are the government agencies rolling over to it? Then the state has then turned around and said, you have to have a certain amount of housing for the...
No, tell me about the street.
Okay.
Without we'll get to the added...
The City Council of Santa Barbara passed as an advisory document the Bicycle Master Plan in 2016 that includes the narrowing of State Street from Constance to 5 Points to 2 lanes and putting in a Class 1 bike path on both sides of State Street.
So State Street, which is now 4
5
lanes with a turning lane, all the way from Constance to
5 Points.
to 5 Points and Highway 101.
Right.
And they've passed an ordinance.
They passed the bicycle master plan as an advisory document.
Oh.
Here's the problem. The city of Santa Barbara in November adopted the bicycle master plan as part of a major public works project, so it is no longer an advisory document. So CEQA, California Environmental Quality Act, says if you're going to do that large of a plan, you have to have an EIR. The city of Santa Barbara has already determined that an EIR for the city of Santa Barbara will cost them $5 million and take approximately 4 to 5 years to do. They haven't done it because they can't afford the money, and they don't want to go through the process because the people in the city will be outraged.
The environmental impact report, which any non-government entity along that street would have to do.
That's right.
Okay, so now we're planning to have 1 lane each way on State Street, which there was enough trouble with Chick-fil-A just having a turnoff. There's businesses that cross over in the middle into driveways.
That's right.
And businesses that people are looking for. 1 lane each way in a business district, I maintain, never works because people are looking for something. They're not just flipping through town.
That's right.
Oh, there's Chick-fil-A, or there's McDonald's, and there's AAA. So we're destined to have that, and then just was dropped on us 670 or something new houses because they have bought Macy's. It's closing, and it's going to be wiped out.
This goes back to RHNA, the Regional Housing Allotment. Okay? The very thing that the Jesuit graduate Jerry Brown, an attorney under the state of California, stated that after he had it passed, it was not constitutional under the state of California Constitution, yet the Democrats and the weak-spined individuals that want money from grants said, oh, well, we have to do it because the arena's been passed. No, you don't.
You mean it's not just the U.S. Constitution that liberals and Democrats ignore, it's also the state?
Oh, big time. And one of the cities in the state of California that has a backbone, and I applaud them, is Huntington Beach. They've sued the state of California, and they have a very good chance of winning. And if they win that lawsuit,
the state dictates won't apply.
Not only will they not apply, but then the cities like Santa Barbara, Goleta, Santa Maria can all go back and sue the state and get money back for the havoc that they're causing.
If the ones that have backbone like Lompoc and Santa Maria will have enough conservative representation, have the guts to do that. I fear for Santa Barbara and Goleta. Okay, so now we've got 600 some new, and
don't forget the old Sears building.
Yeah, tell me about that. That's on because the 600 and some new, they're not talking about traffic on State Street, but they say we've got enough parking, which means there's going to be even more cars to traffic on State.
Here's the problem. The middle of La Cumbre Plaza is owned by a different entity. They own the parking lot. It's not part of the Macy's location. If that entity says, we're not going to let you park here.
Oh, they will. Cha-ching!
Yeah.
Cha-ching!
That's right.
You live in the new Macy's development, $100 a month parking.
You know, it amazes me to watch this process because you have Snedden, who's on the council. You have who's a college instructor. Her husband works for the county of Santa Barbara at a top 6-figure salary, and he does transportation planning. Then you have Harmon, who's a bar-admitted attorney who violates the ethical structure of the state of California. And you have,
we need to, do you know how many more housing that will need cars that's planned for Sears?
It's approximately 1,000.
So
Now, add on to that the fact that this county of Santa Barbara said in South County, in and around Santa Barbara and Goleta, they want to put 5,500 new housing units.
well, part of that, to be fair, is dictated by the state's housing master plan. You've got to find a place for 5,000
And
units.
the dictate, it comes from where? RENA.
Right.
What Governor Brown said is not constitutional under the state of California.
So
It's socialism without any checks and
we
balances.
need to have politicians that are willing to say, hell no, we won't do it,
That's right.
and sue us,
That's right.
and send the National Guard.
Yeah.
And the National Guard will protect us against the other government agencies.
I doubt if any of the three supervisors that have a different political leaning than I do have the backbone to go after the state. I doubt if the entire council, except for Randy Rouse, the city of Santa Barbara, has the backbone to go after it. I know the city of Goleta doesn't.
Well, people can check what you're saying because there's two of the three supervisors that would disagree with us totally.
Of course.
That are up for election and can be defeated to join the two.
Well, that's out of CAB's venue, but I agree with you on a personal level.
So I guess you can tell us more about CAB and where you meet and everything, because we only have a minute and a half left.
Cars Are Basic is a public advocacy for the individual's right to travel the roads and have the roads open and free. We meet the last Wednesday of the month at Santa Barbara IHOP at the State in Valerio at 6:30 in the evening. Everyone is invited. At our last two meetings, we had a dyed-in-the-wool Democrat show up who was opposed to everything we had to say, and we let him have his own say. We do not censor people. We may say we don't agree with you, but if you want to show up, don't be abusive. We'll let you have your point of view.
That's why you told me not to be there, because I'd get my hand around his throat. No, I wouldn't. But no, it's always a group, sadly, but beneficially, that's 10, 15 people, not 100.
That's
so
right.
Everybody can participate and share in it.
Yeah.
So, and say again when that is?
6:30, last Wednesday of the month, every month, otherwise noticed.
But it's the 31st of January.
31st
is the
of-
next meeting.
That's correct.
At IHOP, 6 o'clock,
6:30.
6:30, and you can, why do I always come at 6?
To eat.
Yeah, you can eat off the menu, or you can have a cup of coffee, or they don't bother us if you just want a glass of water. They're very good. Scott, God bless you and thank you.
Thank you.